we'll get rolling here. Our next speaker is Melissa Intezar. She's the Vice President and Manager of Enterprise Consulting with AssetMark. Melissa is responsible for the management of the Enterprise Consulting team as well as the Leadership Advantage offering at AssetMark, where she works closely with enterprise ensemble businesses to help the firm and financial advisors create efficiencies, grow, and evolve. With a background in maximizing business value and driving growth, Melissa has worked with many financial advisors to craft firm-specific strategies to elevate their practices. Melissa's been in the business for 20 years and helps oversee $50 billion in AUM. In her free time, Melissa enjoys spending time with her family, hiking, and snowboarding in the mountains. Let's give a big CFG welcome, and great to have you back in front of us, Melissa. Welcome, Melissa Intezar.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. It is so good to see all these friendly faces. Before I get started, I really wanted to be at this conference last year. Unfortunately, I couldn't be. I was actually having my son at the time, but I was texting Sarah and Tim and sending baby pictures, and so to be here at this event, one, I am truly, truly grateful, so thank you for having me. Today I'm going to talk about leveraging client satisfaction in a new landscape. No surprise, these last 3 years have really changed how we interact with our clients, right? What does that mean? And I don't want to say coming out of COVID, but it's a new landscape. It's a new way of doing business. And so I'm going to talk about how do we leverage client feedback, not only what they tell us, but what they may not be telling us, their body language as well. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, myself, I oversee our enterprise consulting. One thing I want to mention here at AssetMark, we have quite a large group in our consulting. And so the reason why I want to point this out is if there's areas that you're interested in working on your business, we have consultants located throughout the US. So some of you might be familiar with, Wayne. Anyone worked with Wayne in the past? Okay, heard of Wayne? Okay. These are the areas that we work on when it comes to practice management. These are our 4 quadrants. From managing your practice, what's your strategic plan, your business economic model, your profitability margins, empowering your team, marketing, your value proposition, referrals, all the way down to client experience, service model, fee schedule, operations. Now, what's great is many of you, I know because you've gone through our Leadership Advantage program, and we really appreciate that support. If you're continuing to work on your business, or maybe you didn't go through Leadership Advantage, and you're saying, you know what, I really need to strengthen up my fee schedule or service model, we're here to help you out. So if there's any of these topics that really resonate with you, that you want to focus on this last quarter of the year or even into next year, I encourage, write them down and email leadershipadvantage@assetmark.com, and we're happy to connect you with a consultant to help you get started. All right, so let's talk about our agenda. Now that I've talked a little bit about our team and the support that we have here at AssetMark, what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to go over the importance of asking for client feedback. 1, are we even asking for the feedback? 2, I'm going to go over building a framework of creating a client survey feedback process. I'm also going to talk about the nonverbal cues. So we're going to get a little bit into personality traits and how you might be seeing that come across in client meetings. And then typical AssetMark fashion, I'm going to wrap up with all of the resources that we have available for you to take action. All right, so let's get started. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning, according to Bill Gates. Why is that? Shout some answers at me. I know it's early in the morning, getting into it, but why are your customers that are most unhappy your greatest source of learning? Why? Can't fix what you don't know is broken. Exactly. If we don't know why they're unhappy, we can't make that change. What's also good to know, and thank you for sharing that, we have a stat I'm about to share with you. For those clients that are unhappy and you reach out to them and say, hey, let me resolve that for you, 82 to 95% of the time, they become a raving fan. Why? Because you took that extra step to ask them, how can I make this better? What's also interesting to know, I have another stat, I might as well just go to that slide. For every client that comes to you that has unfavorable feedback, there's normally around 26 silent clients behind them, meaning others are feeling this too, but they're hesitant to come to you, right? I don't really know if I should tell Josh how I feel because he might take it a certain way. So it's really important to know.
What's also important, it costs you 5 times as much to keep a client than to attract a new one. So we have to make sure our clients are happy. What's also interesting, and I don't have this stat in here, but there was a stat that showcased that clients that received a call from their financial advisor during turbulent times, i.e. the last 3 years, were 7 times more confident in their relationship with their financial advisor. So it's reaching out to those current clients. And when you know it costs 5 times as much to get a new client than to replace that client, we want to make sure that we're retaining them. Other areas here, the average unhappy customer will tell 8 to 16 people about a bad experience. When you have a bad experience, what happens? You go home and you tell your spouse about it, right? And then you see your friend. You're like, oh my gosh, you know what? This happened, I met with my advisor. Can you believe that? People are more likely to tell the unfavorable feedback compared to the favorable. So another area that we just need to be aware of, again, when it comes to that client satisfaction. Another thing that's really prevalent now, we know that we're not the only influencers to our clients. They're on CNN, they're on Wall Street. Show of hands, how many of you have had a client come in and say, I heard this from Anderson Cooper? Yeah, I'm seeing the hands. I saw this on the Wall Street Journal, right? I turned on Fox News and, oh my gosh, the markets are tanking 20%. What does that mean for my portfolio, right? You guys have all gotten on this, yep, I'm seeing the heads shaking. We know that others are influencing our clients. So we have to make sure that we're in the forefront. What's also interesting to note, some additional stats here, absolute engagement, they went out and they asked for the clients to respond to the question, I have been asked for feedback. So they went out and they asked investors, have you been asked for feedback, okay? Now those clients that said, yes, I've been asked for feedback, you can see here, oops, my clicker went forward, 75% said they sent in a referral. That's not a fluke. When clients are asked for feedback, they know that you're invested. They're more likely to send in a referral. And we can see that here. We can see that 75% sent in a referral if they were asked for feedback. What's also interesting, 85%, and let me make sure, 84% of engaged clients are saying that it's very important for an advisor to have a formal process in place. Why? Because it demonstrates that their advisor cares about their relationship. 84%. If we are not surveying our clients, that's a big area of differentiation. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Benefits of asking for client feedback. You know, I'll tell you, when I work with advisors and we talk about surveys, I'll say, hey, have you surveyed clients? Well, Melissa, honestly, what if it's bad news? Oh, what do I do, right? We want to know what that bad news is so we can fix it. We have blind spots. We all do. I do. We all do, right? And sometimes those unhappy clients can really bring that to the forefront. So going through this process helps you to look at areas, uncover areas of opportunity, communicate more transparently. I recently did a client advisory board meeting for an advisor. She's a $2.1 million producer, very large producer. I got to meet with 10 of her top clients. We were going through this survey and we were asking questions. Hey, did you know your advisor provided this and this? One of the clients raised her hand and said, you know what, I'm going through a divorce. Do you provide, divorce planning to help me out? Yeah, I do. I've done that for years. But her clients didn't know that. So it also helps to uncover areas where your clients may not be aware that you're providing services. Also, it helps to understand client feelings. This advisor I work with, she's going to be launching this new book, and she's getting out there, and she has this new thing, and she wanted to run that by her clients just to get their feedback, especially her top clients. And what was interesting is when she had asked the question, some of these clients had said, well, is this a new niche market? You're getting into the female side. Are you still going to service, the men investors as well? Are you going to change your branding? So it was a really unique experience to gather that feedback. So ask your clients for that feedback. Having a feedback process, it builds ambassadors within your firm. When someone provides you feedback, and then you follow up with it and you actually implement that feedback, you're starting to get those raving cheerleaders, those ambassadors that are going to start to talk about your brand. I have a doctor, she's a specialist, And one of her incentive programs was, hey, if you send in a referral, you get this card, blah, blah, blah. You get $25 to the grocery store. Not that I can't afford $25 at the grocery store, but darn it, I wanted that, right? And so what did I do? I sent in 3 referrals so I could get that $25 gift card to the grocery store. But she was also building a brand ambassador in me, right? I love what she was doing. She was helping my health. But it's those little things, right, that start to build the brand ambassador. When you think about client advisory board, those 10 clients that I met with for that $1 million producer, those are her ambassadors. Those are the ones that are talking about her, that are sending in those referrals, and that care about her business. That's what we want. So let's talk about getting started. You might be saying, this is all great, Melissa. How do I do this? So at AssetMark, we truly believe that every area of your business should have a process and system behind it. And client feedback is no different. So we have a 6-step process that we go through. And it really starts with, what are your objectives? Why do you want this survey? Is it to gauge client satisfaction, see how your team is doing, what services you need to provide? Then you're going to craft your questions around that. Make sure it aligns. Next up, what is your methodology? Is it a written survey, in person, electronic? Next up, executing that process, gathering the feedback, analyze the results, and then close the client loop. So I'm going to go through each of these steps just real quickly to give you an idea. And of course, if you're interested, I'm going to talk about the resources behind this so you can implement and take action. But let's start first with objectives. Why are you going through and creating a client review or client survey process? Maybe it's you want to show your clients that you value them. Remember that 84% of clients that said it was really important to be asked for feedback? Right there. We want to show that we value that client, that relationship. Maybe we want to learn more about the client needs. What's interesting is absolute engagement. I don't have this stat in here. They had asked investors pre-COVID, so early March, what are the areas or topics of interest? They then surveyed those same clients a month later after COVID hit, and the responses significantly had changed. And that's what I encourage. Have your clients' objectives changed in the last 3 years? Because according to survey results that we're seeing, they are changing. Health and wellness, how do I take care of aging parents? How do I get that next generation plan in place? Also, it helps you gather client demographics, service insights, evaluate team performance. How is your team doing? Do they respond in a timely fashion? So if you haven't gone through it, I do suggest it. And here are some questions that you might have in your survey process. I'm not going to go through each one of these questions, but if you want the answer to a question, make sure to include that question. And sometimes it can be a hard one. Like, do you value the services that we provide? Man, if someone selects a no, it's going to go to my heart, right? But you want to know those things, so that way you can make it better. So make sure that our questions align. Now, I noticed a few folks taking pictures of this slide. We actually have a whole resource of sample questions as well, so you can easily kind of plug it into a template for you. All right, the 3 different ways to survey clients. The first one, in person, one-on-one. We normally suggest this for top-tier clients. I'll go in that into a little bit more detail. Next up is a client advisory board. Get together some of your clients. They don't necessarily need to be the biggest clients, but we want the best clients. And then lastly is a survey. When you look at these 3 options, you might say, you know what, I've never surveyed clients before, and this is a no judgment zone here. We're all friends. So if we haven't done that, you might just want to pick one of these options. I've even had some offices implement all 3, but I really encourage, make this digestible. What's going to work best for you? Okay? So choose one of those options. When we talk about one-on-one, I encourage, pick out 8 to 10 of your top-tier clients, give them a call, let them know that you're working on your business, and you'd love to meet for lunch at a really nice location. You have a few questions, would love their opinion on it, right? And then close the loop and follow up. We know that this is going to take a little bit more of your time, right? So again, choose your options wisely. Which am I going to go with, 1, 2, or 3? When you're thinking about a client advisory board, maybe you don't want to do the one-on-one meeting, you want the client advisory board. In this case, we suggest around 9 to 12 clients to invite. We also stick to your niche. The clients that you want to replicate are the ones that we would invite. your influencers, clients that have referred you. I'm curious, again, we're all friends here, no judgment. Has anyone facilitated a client advisory board? Show of hands. I knew you would, yep. Okay, we have a few hands going up. If you haven't, what's great is you have folks here at CFG that have done that before, and we also have resources available for you too, because it's cumbersome. Is it not cumbersome to go through that process? Do you do it once a year? Twice a year. Is it electronic, in-person, a mix?
First one was Zoom, second one was in person.
Okay, first one was Zoom, second one was in person, twice a year, okay? I have resources if you want any. We have a sample advisory board meeting agenda. We also have follow-up resources I'm going to share with you as well. So if this is a process that you're interested in, you want someone to help you walk through it, one, we have consultants ready to go, and then we have the templates built out for you. When it comes to the client advisory board, I also suggest have a meeting agenda. I've done these in person, and I've also done them in Zoom. I always have a PowerPoint ready to go with the 15 questions I'm going to ask. I also have on those slides things like a snapshot of my service model, so I can ask them, do you know I have a service model? I'll tell you the advisor, the multi-million-dollar producer I met with, when we asked her clients, hey, here's her service model, are you aware of this? No. Oh, do you know what their value proposition is? No. Would it be great to have a service model? Actually, yeah, because it would help me refer them to others within my family and other clients. And so we were starting to uncover some of these things. But have that as part of your meeting agenda. Client survey. So the last option, we talked about one-on-one, we talked about client advisory board, and next up is a survey. I will tell you this one is probably the most popular option along with client advisory boards. So what's nice with the client survey, oftentimes you can really kind of get to your whole client base. Surveys tend to be a little bit easier. You can create a cover letter. You can ask for the client feedback. And what's great is you're then able to analyze results, right? How many of my clients were selecting this answer, or maybe there was some kind of trends that you were seeing and going through that process. So survey solutions here. We can either do mailers, I know it's a little old school, or we can also do electronic. The reason why I mention mailers, some clients, and you might agree with me or might not, some clients don't have access to email or don't really open their email. Yes. So sometimes there might be a select group where we send out mailers. The hard part with that is then we have to collect the data, we have to analyze the results. If we go the electronic version, that's kind of done for us, right? There's two different options that I generally see advisors leaning towards. One is SurveyMonkey. Who's heard of SurveyMonkey? Show of hands. No one told you this was a cardio session, did they? Up, down, up, down. Okay. SurveyMonkey, complimentary, free, limited. You can always pay to upgrade. If you pay to upgrade, it's around $200 to $300 a month, depending upon the upgrades that you do. We also here at AssetMark have a SurveyMonkey account. So we've also had some advisors say, hey, can I test it out the first time, and then I'll decide if I want to pay, SurveyMonkey. The other one is Absolute Engagement. Absolute Engagement is a new company that we recently partnered with, and their survey process is really impressive. So not only do they help you create your objectives, they also help you go through and say, based upon these objectives, here's the questions I would draft. And by the way, we know you're going to have to go through compliance. So, right, Lisa? Uh-huh. You're going to have to go through compliance. When Lisa's going to look at all those questions and say, are these the right questions? And they actually help you through that process as well. And then they actually help you with sending out the surveys. And what's pretty cool is they have a dashboard. And so they analyze all the results for you and produce these really nice reports. I actually just had an advisor just go through it. I met with her earlier this week. And they have a lot of great actionable steps that they're taking based upon this. And she said it was one of the best things that they've done the last 5 years because they haven't surveyed their clients. So survey solutions, again, either mailers or electronic. Here's an example for SurveyMonkey. We do have this as one of our deliverable resources. So if you're interested in going through SurveyMonkey, we have this worksheet that will take you through, here's how to create your surveys and how to send it out. It gives you all that information if you're interested in SurveyMonkey. All right, don't waste customers' time asking them questions unless you're prepared to act on what they say. This is huge. If we send out a survey to clients and we don't close the loop on that, they're going to be like, why did I do this? And instead, psychologically, you can further build their trust by saying, hey, everyone, right? Send out an email that says, based upon your feedback, which we really appreciate you taking the time to complete our survey, here are the 10 things that we're going to do differently based upon your feedback. It's bringing it back. It's closing the loop with those clients. It's showing that you care about their feedback. And what happens next year when you send out the survey link? Are they more likely to fill that out if they know that you're taking action? I'm seeing people shaking their heads. Exactly. Same thing here. If someone asked me to do a survey and they didn't close the loop with me, I'd be like, oh, that was a waste of time, you know? Let me know what you did with my information. Same thing for our clients. Okay, closing that feedback loop. Let's say you're looking for some sample verbiage. You sent out a survey, you want to go ahead and close that loop, right? So here's an example of an email that you might write out, a template that you might call your clients on to let them know. But this is just a great way to close the loop, right? Thanks for completing our survey. We really appreciate it. We're making some active changes, and list out those changes. Okay, so we know that client feedback can be verbal. We also know that client feedback can be nonverbal, right? And a lot of times, the nonverbal is larger than the verbal, right? We can pick up on those cues. So next, I'm going to go over the DISC assessment along with the 4 personality traits, okay? Show of hands, who's heard of DISC? The DISC assessment? Great. Majority of the group. Show of hands, who has taken the DISC assessment? Good, good. About half the room. Awesome. I'm also a registered corporate coach, so I specialize in the personality side. What exactly is DISC? It sounds like this group has a good handle on that, which is awesome. The big thing with DISC is it looks at and measures behavior and emotion. It's not looking at intelligence. It's not looking at values, right? It's not looking at education. There are 4 areas of DISC I'm going to talk about briefly. And what's important to know is all DISC styles and priorities are equally valuable and non-exclusive. So what does that mean? That means we have a little bit of a D, a little bit of I, a little bit of S, and C in us. We have all 4 of them. However, generally folks tend to be a little bit higher in 1 or 2 categories, okay? So you might be high on kind of the D side or low on the I side, but these are those 4 characteristics. So going over them just real quickly, because it sounds like we have some good knowledge of it. D stands for dominance. These individuals tend to be a little bit more strong-willed. They have focus on their results, or a little bit more control-oriented. How might they come across to others? A little bit angry, right? Some might say, oh, wow, they're a little high-strung, right? Next up, we have I. And actually, before I move to I, under D, positions that the D might take in terms of their career, CEOs, entrepreneurs, right? People that tend to be in that high-level executive management position tend to be a little bit more in that higher D level. I, influencer. The influencer is expressive, enthusiastic, collaborative. They're the ones that come to these conferences and they're shaking hands and how you doing? Let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, right? They want to have a good time. You get them at happy hour, oh my goodness. They're the ones closing it down and giving their tab to Tim, okay? Right? Those are those influencers. I'm not going to name them in the group. I'm sure Tim knows them, okay? But these are those ones that they want to get involved with everyone. They want to have a good time. And how do they come across to others? Trustworthy, right? These are the people that you're going to connect with, that you feel that connection with. The positions that these people typically tend to hold, politicians, surprise, surprise, right? Consultants, actors, and singers. Okay, so you might have a few of these folks within your client base. Next up is steadiness. Steadiness are kind of those even keel folks, right? They're listeners, they're patient, they're supportive. They also tend to be, they want to make others feel included, but they're a little bit more quiet on that compared to a high I. How they might come across to others is a little bit non-emotional. But the reason why is because they're very steady. When they say something to you, it's going to be very deliberate and on purpose. And then lastly, we have C. C is for conscientiousness. Those individuals that have a high C in their personality, process-oriented. Systems, processes, procedures, Excel documents, these are the numbers. These are also clients that tend to be military, your engineers, accountants. And I've even had some folks say to me, I no longer take on C clients. I've learned the hard way. I don't do well with the engineers that come in and want to analyze every single thing in the prospectus, and they want to go through all of it, right? Because they're detail-oriented. So I've actually even had some advisors go through this and say, I'm done with the C's. What's also interesting, I presented this at a large producer conference, top producer conference, and I'd asked the question, I said, has anyone implemented this within their client base, right, within their process? And what was interesting is one advisor, she raised her hand, she said, I no longer take on new clients unless they complete a DISC assessment. Because by going through that DISC assessment, it tells me who on my team they should work with, it tells me who they're going to have a better fit with, and ultimately, that client's going to have a better experience when I know their personality, and I can make sure we have that fit. And she goes, now granted, I didn't start this until I was really, high level in production, right? I can't just turn everyone away and do all of that. But she said over the last 5 years, we've really noticed there are certain clients that we do our best work with that are the raving fans, and that's who we need to replicate. And that personality assessment actually helped them. So that was part of their onboarding. I'm not recommending that to everyone, but I thought it was a really interesting example of how this advisor was actively implementing this to positively change the client experience. They even recorded this in their CRM system. So that way, when they're about to call that client back, they know, okay, here's how I should probably address that client. So different ways that you can kind of implement this. And I'm going to go over a hypothetical scenario. Okay, so I went over the 4 different areas of DISC. How do you pick these up in an everyday scenario like this morning? What did we all have to do? Unless you're on the first floor. Yeah, press the elevator button, right? We got to get down here. We got to get to our meeting. So let's say it's 7:30 in the morning. We're all getting ready for breakfast. We go to the elevator, and we press that elevator door button. How do we recognize a D, I, S, and C? If you are high D, are you a high D? I see her hitting him.
No, I just know high Ds.
I love that. She's like, I got that one. I know that one. All right, high D. What do you do if you're a high D? You run to the elevator because you're running late. You are running late, and you're pressing that button. And even though you've pressed it once, you feel like you need to press it 5 times because it'll get there faster, of course, right? And then if you're a high D, what do? I'm running into the elevator. Nope, no, I don't care if there's someone down. Nope. Close, right? You're laughing because I know it's true. The I is standing there, they're having a good time. They're running late. They know Tim's fine with that. It's okay, I'll stroll in here, right? But what do? They put their hand in the elevator. Hey guys, come on. We're having a party in here. Let's go, come on, we're gonna be late for the meeting. Let's go to breakfast together, right? Those are those folks. And the D's in that elevator going, really, buddy? Really? Right? The S. What does the S do? Well, the S, they're not running late, okay? Because there's steadiness. They've got this down. They know they have to be at breakfast, not at 8 a.m., but at 7:45, because I have to be there 15 minutes early. So I'm not running late. So all these people, all these D's are coming over with their elbows and elbowing me out of the way. So if I'm an S, I'm going to take a step back. Go ahead, guys. I'm not running late. I'll get the next elevator. I'll take the stairs. No worries, right? That's your S. The C, conscientiousness, what do? Well, they're gonna get in the elevator, because I've been waiting after all, right? I'm sitting here, but when I get in that elevator, I'm gonna start to size it up. How many people do I have in here? 5, 6, 7. Okay, what's the weight limit? Okay, let me think about this in an Excel chart. Okay, if we have 5 people, they're at least 150 each. Okay, are we at the maximum weight limit? Okay, how long is it gonna take this elevator to get down? That's your high C. And they'll probably be the ones in the corner, right? They're the ones that back up into the corner, and they're just looking at everyone, okay? That's how we can pick these individuals up, right, in an everyday hypothetical scenario. Let's talk about their communication styles. So we've seen how we can pick this up. Now let's talk about what this means during your client meetings, okay? All right, so if someone's a high D, this client is gonna be coming in, they're gonna have those quick motions, gestures. Hey, how's it going, man? All right, what do we need to talk about today? Where's my portfolio at? How am I doing on my financial plan? They're very quick, okay? They're very formal in their dress and their attire. They're the ones that probably have, the flashy jewelry, and, it's kind of the keeping up with the Joneses type of feeling, right? They have to get a haircut every week. They're very well dressed. When it comes to time management, these folks are normally running late, and normally they're not prepared. They're just coming there and they're saying, what do I need to know? Okay, great, send it to me in an email. Send it in bullet points too, because that'll be easier for me to read. Okay, perfect, got it, let's go. I see you shaking your head. You got a few of those? Yeah? Okay. When it comes to their speech patterns, loud, quick speech, these are also individuals out of all 4 of the DISC categories. This is the one category that they might prefer profanity or sarcasm, sarcastic language. I'm not recommending that. I'm not recommending that at all, but it's something that has been noticed in a D personality. So maybe you have a client that might swear a little bit more than often, and you're like, whoa, they might be a high D. All right, the influencer client. This client comes in, they're very happy, talkative. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you, Dave. It's been a while. How's your family doing? This is also the client that when you open your door, because you have a client meeting, and they're running around your office saying hi to all your staff members. How's it going, Mary? How are the kids? Let me give you a hug. But they're doing that because they want to feel part of your office, because that's their big thing. They want to be part of the group. So they're very talkative, upbeat. In terms of their dress, they're a little bit more informal, but they're very trendy. So you're going to see some bright colors, some fun hair kind of do's, right? Time management. These folks are normally running late, but they're running late because they're having such a good time. They're out there talking to your staff members. If you have an office dog, oh, forget about it. They're the ones that are going to pick up the dog and say, okay, let's go to our meeting together, right? They're those clients. Speech patterns, as you would expect, a little bit louder. They do appreciate slang. They do appreciate humor. They might be that client that comes in, give me the fist pump. Do we still do that? Or I don't know, whatever it is. Those fancy handshakes, okay? That's what they're all about. Steadiness. Steadiness, these are individuals that are very warm and caring. They're not really flashy, but they're really happy to be there. They're a little bit more informal in terms of how they dress, because they don't care about keeping up with the trends. They don't care what others might be thinking. Time management. Steadiness, these folks are rarely ever late, because that would be taking away from your time. And they know that. These are hard workers, and these are the clients that tend to come in prepared. Now, when it comes to their speech patterns, they enjoy the small talk. So if you know you have someone coming in who's a high S, you'll want to ask the questions, how's your family doing? How's mom and dad? How are the kids? How are the grandkids? And spend that time. If you're meeting with a high D and you start asking those questions, they'd probably look at you and say, okay, next, right? Like they don't have the time for that. Versus a high S, they want to have those conversations. These are also the clients that probably are going to come in and want to give you a hug, or maybe not because things are different these days, but those are those individuals. Speech patterns are a little bit kind of not necessarily slower, but slower than a high D, okay? So they're going to be a little bit more reserved in their communication to you. All right, our last one here is conscientious. So the conscientious client, I hate that the word boring is up here. They might come a little cross because they're using monotone language. So it's a little bit more even keel versus necessarily kind of boring. These individuals tend to be physically fit. These individuals, when it comes to attire, it's a little bit more informal, a little bit more conservative. Time management, they're not going to be late. Because if they were late, that's a sign of imperfection on their part, okay? And they're rarely ever in a hurry, and they're going to come prepared. As I mentioned, these are your accountants, that CPA, the engineer, and they're going to come prepared to ask the questions and probably have a copy of the prospectus and everything else for you to take a look at. All right, speech patterns. I've mentioned kind of a little bit more monotone, a little bit more soft and deliberate. I have a question. You know, as I'm reading these out, show of hands, are there clients that come to mind that are a high D? Let's see about the high Ds first. Yep. Yeah. What about our I's? Do we have a lot of I clients in here? Yeah. I've also noticed you kind of attract your tribe sometimes when it comes to this. All right, what about high S's? Steadiness. Yep. Okay. And then our last one is C, conscientiousness. Show of hands. Anyone? Engineers? CPAs? Accountants? Okay. There was a gentleman that raised his hand in the back there. What would you say your preference is? The eyes. Why?
I like having fun.
You like having fun. Have you taken a disc before?
Something similar. I don't know if it's exactly this one.
Okay, I was just curious if you might be a high eye. Yeah. It sounds like everyone's in agreement here. Okay. That's perfect. Awesome. One thing I encourage is writing this down in your CRM system. Who are those high eyes? Who are the ones that you enjoy working with? The other thing that I encourage, and I'm not saying everyone should change their personality by any means, but in this position, your position, even in the financial services industry, this is a relationship business, right? And so one of the big things that many advisors have come to me after seeing this session is, I now know how to be a little bit more of a chameleon, meaning I know a high D client's coming in, so I have to kind of change myself a little bit to obviously meet that client where they are. So I know for me, I've taken this disc probably every 2 years, and what's interesting is my disc assessment has changed slightly with each position I have held. So when I'm overseeing teams, and I'm also our subject matter expert for business valuation, succession planning, and M&A, when I have to put that hat on, I am high D and I'm a high C. I'm all about the details, the numbers, and I'm driven, and I have an end date, and I need to know what that end date is because I have to get a deal done, right? When I'm managing a team, I'm a little bit more of an I, an S, but the D comes out when we start talking about goals, right? So same thing with staff members, same thing with clients. We all have a little bit of D, I, S, and C in us. But normally, 2 of these traits tend to come out a little bit higher. And those traits tend to come out when we're a little bit frustrated or stressed out. That's when we might see that high D come out, right? Or we might be working with our grandparents, and so that S is going to come out in us. So we all have a little bit of each of them. By the way, here at Asset Mark, we also do provide DISC assessments, should you be interested. All right, so in summary here, what I encourage, when it comes to asking clients for feedback, feedback can be given verbally, and feedback can also be given non-verbally, picking up on those cues. So ask your clients for their opinion. You might be surprised on what you hear. One big thing I encourage, knowing I think it was only about 3 or 4 folks that have gone through a client survey process, this is something I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend. If you are interested, again, we have resources that are complimentary, in addition to resources that could cost a little bit if you really want to invest in that client survey. But we do provide a discount for it. So I do encourage that. Decide the best survey option for you. Consider creating a formal client advisory board. Maybe you're intimidated to send out a survey. No worries, I got it. Maybe your first approach is going to be a client advisory board, where you want to get together 5 or 10 of your clients. That's also a really great starting point as well. And as I mentioned, we have the resources available for you. Leverage asset mark, feedback is spoken and sometimes not. Pick up on those body language cues, right? When you're in that meeting, pick up on those, write them in your CRM system. Even if you're not sure that person's a high D or not, you could just have a little note in here, hey, I'm kind of thinking this. It could change though. And that can really help not only you, but your staff members and how you interact with those clients. All right, if you'd like more information, we have contact information up here, but really, the main person that runs CFG on the asset mark side is going to be Miss Sarah Paulson. If you could stand up, please. Woo! That's the 25-year-old blonde in the back. That's Sarah Paulson, okay? Next to Jesse, okay? Hey, Jesse, I haven't seen you yet. So you could write this number down, but really, it's going to be Miss Sarah Paulson. And we also have a general inbox, which is leadershipadvantage@assetmark.com. If you email me, I'll send it right to Sarah, okay? So if you have questions on this, you want to learn about the surveys, the sample meeting agenda for your client advisory board, we have that all available for you. All right, before we wrap up, was that beneficial? Was that helpful? Yes? Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your conference. Yes, Sarah?
These resources, because of the AssetMark partnership with CFG, are available to you whether you're using AssetMark or not.
Everything is available.
We don't want you to feel like you
Yes.
access this stuff.
And much of this is already branded for CFG because we love you so much. Thanks, everyone.